Anyone can use the internet to find out what the US president earns as a salary. You can easily find out what his other benefits are. The US Congress financial details are also readily available anywhere. We know all about their salary structure and the many allowances they get or do not get for the job they perform. But in Nigeria, and since we returned to democracy in 1999, the salary of our leaders, from the president to members of the Congress, and to all other leading Nigerians in positions of power, their salary has continued to be a mystery. With this, I welcome you to Pointblank today. My name is Patrick Omaosage. Pointblank is my opinion show where I discuss, educate, and tell you give you my opinion as I see a lot of things. And today that issue is going to be on the salary structure in Nigeria and how I see it affecting the way we do things. Even you'll be surprised. I believe the salary structure actually affects corruption in Nigeria. So let me take a very quick break and I'll come right back to you. Remember, you're watching Pointblank this Thursday evening. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Pointblank. Again, my name is Patrick Omaosage and my Twitter handle is PJ Osage. Again, I'm looking at what kind of monies our leaders make. Really, all those that are in leadership position in Nigeria. Remember, I have done what I called the kind of scam that our leaders are running on us with their pension. But this time, I'm actually looking at their salaries and how that even really kind of relates to the pension that they get. Is this money that they earn, is it adequate? Or is it just right for them? Or is it way below what they should be making? Look, I said earlier, you can go on the internet and find out what President Barack Obama makes, or any US president. As of now, that amount is $400,000. He gets a few other allowances like feeding allowance, which I understand is about $50,000. But you know what? If he sends his clothes, obviously his suits are dry cleaned, his shirts are dry cleaned and all that, that comes out of his salary. That is not part of the extra allowances he gets as a president. He has to pay for those things himself. But we recently saw a released report by a group called the Economic Confidential. They do have a website. And on that website, they put down in very beautiful form, and we're going to put this up also on our website for people to take a look at it. They put down the pay structure of the president, the vice president, ministers, constitutional body members, special advisors, speechwriters, permanent secretaries, DGs, and and resident electoral commissioners. They put down what we call their annual basic salary, vehicle maintenance, personal assistance, house maintenance, domestic fee, entertainment, utilities, constituency allowance, hardship, newspapers, all types of allowances. But let me tell you something. With all these allowances, the president of Nigeria barely goes home with really $40,000. That's a huge difference compared to what the American president gets. I'm not saying we're on the same level, but for heaven's sake, his compensation package is way too small, that almost inconsequential, that I can almost tell you, most Nigerians in this position will say, this is not what I'm working for. That might lead to corruption. I'm not saying that is why they're corrupt. We all believe they're corrupt. But it's really, the structure is really, for me, completely inadequate. But let me go on. We also have what we call non-regular allowances. So stated the Economic Confidential that has published this. There's so many things that are really unnecessary. A severance pay after a tenure. I talked about that as a pension scam. A severance pay when they're still going to get a pension. Look, I might be wrong, but I've worked in the American system now for well over 20 years. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how money is used out here, what pay structures look like. I do have colleagues or friends, I mean, I call them friends, that work in all industries, that work for government. I've been with the university system for several years. I know what the pay structure is. The pay structure in Nigeria, I'm contending, actually leaves a lot to allow us into corrupt practices. I have known people that work in what you call the semi-private sector. And I'll give an example. The people that work at the CBN, or people that work with NMPC. These are almost what you call semi-private sector. NMPC is an oil company. They're into production, marketing, and all. They have all the variances of a big and large company. A typical manager in NMPC goes home yearly with about 40 million naira. At today's rate of about 400 naira to $1, that's $100,000. That's a pretty good salary even in America. Remember, the average salary in America, that's a middle class income salary in America, the median, is about 50. So $100,000, even in America, is a very good salary. And it's even so much better in Nigeria. But the same manager, when you look at the allowances, he's also given an NMPC. He gets almost another 30 million on top of that 40 million. So he gets another 25 to 30 million for things like, you know what? Buying a generator, fueling his generator, for hiring what? A driver. For little things like that. I mean, I understand they've tried to monetize what I consider maybe the support of the managerial skill. I'm not even quarreling with that amount. What I'm saying is that if an NMPC can pay that well, I see no reason why those in leadership positions cannot get something close to that. I know I'm going out here on the limb, I'm going way out with what most of you might think, but I think right now, from what I see and the way I've assessed it, I think that a lot of people that are in government management, that manage us as a people, are leaders, yes, they're politicians, are, and I'm going to say this, surprisingly, really poorly paid. Let me take another very quick break, and I'll be back to continue on this very, I'll put it, a very sore topic for me. So hang in there, I'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching Point Blank this Thursday evening. Remember, this program is on every Thursday for the first time at 8:30 p.m. And then it's we rebroadcast this all throughout the next week before the next Thursday. So, you go ahead and make time to watch this program. Make time to send us your comments or even ask questions. Remember, last week, I took a bunch of questions and answered them. I mean, these questions have been coming in on the first 13 episodes we've done. I took a bunch of questions that have come in from you viewers. I mean, we really like to hear from you. Remember, my Twitter handle is PJ Osage, and the Twitter handle of this program is just hashtag Point Blank, and you get a message across to us. You can also watch this at any time, anywhere. Talk to your friends in Nigeria. Talk to your friends outside Houston. They should go onto our website at www.mbclivetv.com, and you go to the program section, click on hashtag, and you can watch a lot of past episodes and obviously the current episode. Now let me go back to my rant, and I call it a rant because this is one of those that I can't understand the difference really in the pay structure in Nigeria. It's almost appalling. Why do I use the word appalling really? You can't understand it. Look, I know that the people here in America, that we complain about the pay scales too. You always hear that maybe the CEO of Walmart earns several thousand times more than he's maybe his lowest paid worker and all that. I'm not saying that I understand that, but I do know what goes into that. They've structured it. Look, you can upwardly move up here. I mean, I don't know whether he's still the guy, but the guy that was at one time, or possibly is still the present CEO at Walmart, was actually once a staff there himself. I mean, was actually one of a floor guy one time himself while he was in college. He ended up getting to be the CEO. It takes not too long. I think all this took him about 20-something years to get to the top of, to be CEO at Walmart. Now, there's a mobility that is possible within the American system. And so when people talk about the people in the banks make so much money, the people at the top in banks make so much money. Look, I'm never going to argue with that. People talk about our athletes make so much money. I'm never going to argue with that. What they do, a lot of us can't do, you know, the way they jump, the way they run, the way they catch a ball. People cannot, you know, not everybody can do that. I mean, doctors make good money. I mean, they have to cut open the head of someone. I understand all that. I understand big money. I want people to make big money. But for the president of Nigeria, when you look at his entire package, to be earning an equivalent in dollars of only about $40,000 a year, we're looking for trouble. We are looking for trouble. I know people are going to tweet me and tell me about, what about the senators? Look, I have said it on this program. What we consider the entire package of members of our Congress or the Senate in particular, it's not really salary. They all have a constituency allowance attached to it where they're supposed to hire other people, they're supposed to rent an office, they're supposed to do so much with it. Now, of course, we all know they don't do all that, but now we put all that and say that's their salary. It's not their salary. That's not their salary. The reason that they probably sit on that kind of money is because maybe their salary is very little. I'm going to take another break and I'm going to be right back and we'll continue on this very dire, very sore, very annoying issue that I'm having to deal with today. So I'll be right back. Welcome back to Point Blank. My name is Patrick Omosagi. I look at the report that was produced, and I actually got it from one of Nigeria's very favorite websites, Sahara Reporters. I mean, these facts and figures, salaries of Buhari, Osinbajo, and others, was produced by a group that calls themselves the Economic Confidential. And I'm just going to read a paragraph here. The report shows that only the president and the vice president in the executive arm of government enjoy the hardship allowance of 50% each of their annual basic salaries, 250% as constituency allowances, and enjoy other perks to be provided by government. These benefits to be provided to the two leaders include, but not limited to, the following: accommodation, furniture, domestic staff, personal assistance, utilities, newspapers, vehicles, entertainment, maintenance, and ESTA code. Let's start with hardship allowance. And yet, look, some of those things that we continue to do in Nigeria, and even though I say that I think the president is poorly paid in Nigeria, but what's a hardship allowance? These were allowances by who? These were allowances that were started by our colonial masters. Of course, when they send you from England to Nigeria, I guess they got to pay you something. They used to actually even call it, I think there's a hardship allowance and there's a bush allowance. That's you're going into the bush. You're going away from maybe what they considered civilization at that time. That's why they paid that. Now you're paying a minister at times, and I'm going to get the amount the minister actually gets for that. A minister gets he gets a hardship allowance of he gets a half-sheet allowance of, I think, almost 50,000 every night that he's out of Abuja, obviously. So every time the minister in Nigeria travels out of Abuja, he gets some money. I'm not going to complain about really what the amount is, but I'm trying to say, let us look at the logic at times in some of those things. So how do we expect then for the system to really develop? That is why we all aspire at some time to either be a minister or to be the friend of a minister, because he makes so much liquid cash outside his basic salary. I think the salary should be more important. A U.S. minister, a United States minister, who they refer to them as secretaries of health or secretary of education, that's a ministerial position. What do they earn? They earn about 200,000 salary a year. They have other perks, but one thing I can guarantee you, and I know, they have no accommodation attached to it. Of course, they have an official car because of security reasons, but they have no accommodation. You want to live in Washington, D.C., you had better be able to find your own property either to buy or rent. That's the way it works. But that salary is good enough for them to at least earn. A minister, who by the time he goes through checks and security checks and all that, is probably credit worthy, so he can get himself a place. We know the story. We've heard the story of even senators, not even just members of Congress, that actually rent property or buy property with their junior staff, people that they pay to. Now, of course, they're not paying with their own money. Those they do have constituency allowances to run an office. They come together and either rent a house together or buy a house together for obviously a 2-year stint or a 6-year stint that a senator is in office. I'm not saying these are things that we need to do, but these are things we need to look at. The present salary structure in Nigeria, especially for our leaders, it's really appalling. I'm not going to say it's too small, but it doesn't work out well looking ahead. Again, let me go back to NMPC, or let me go back to Central Bank. I have a bunch of friends. I know people that work in those places. They're pretty well paid, no matter where you are, whether it's in Nigeria or it's America. What they earn is commensurate with what they would get in a place like America. And remember, the standards of living in Nigeria is so much. Look, I'll give you an example. A minister today is given 4 million to rent a house. 4 million. What is 4 million naira to rent a house? It's really not much. But I'm being told I should take a break. So I'll take a very quick break. When I come back, I'll really get into that. Really, I got a question last week. Before I take this break, I got a question last week that why do I do so much comparison between the United States and Nigeria and Africa? And this was part of my answer. Fortunately, this is where I live. And I have no other place to balance my judgment. I've lived in both parts of the world. All my formative years, first degree and all that was in Nigeria. I've now been here many, many, many years, well over 20 years. And I start to see things not really differently, but at least I can start to balance things. So let me take another quick break. When I come back, I'm not going to wrap it up yet because I still have a few nuggets to throw at you. Because I want this to now become a discussion point for us. Is it the salary that we're paying our leaders? Is it too small? Is it inadequate? Is it causing a problem in developing a corrupt mind or a corrupt system? All those are things I want us to start to discuss. But let me take that break because I'm being told to take it. I'll take that break and I'll be right back. Remember, stay tuned. You're still watching Point Blank. Welcome back. This is still Point Blank this Thursday evening. I hope you're having a good time watching. I'm watching and following exactly what I'm doing today. Today, like I said, and if you've been on with me, today I'm really looking at the salary structure, first of all, of our leadership in Nigeria, for political leaders, and then, trying to put it side by side with some businesses in the country. And that's what I'm doing. Before I left on the break, I did say that a minister in Nigeria today that is supposed to be situated in Abuja is given, his accommodation is monetized. He's given 4 million naira to get an accommodation. I don't own properties in Abuja, so I don't know. But you know what? 4 million, let us take prevailing exchange rate today. It's about 400. 4 million naira at 400 naira to $1, that's only $10,000. Most of you that live here in Houston and you're trying to rent a 4-bedroom, a 5-bedroom in any decent area would easily be spending close to $30,000 a year. Easily. You'll be paying anything from $2,200 to $2,600, $2,700 a month on good rent in a decent area. So that's $30,000 a year. That will be 12 million naira for a federal minister. Just assume that that is what we want him to. Now, again, maybe houses are not that expensive in Nigeria to rent. Look, I'm not in the market in Nigeria, so I don't know. But most people would tell me that 4 million maybe is decent enough for him to get property. Or he should get property at least 4 million naira. It might not be enough for him to live in, but maybe 4 million. But here's look, the bottom line is, what I'm saying is that I think we have messed up the structure of earnings in Nigeria. I actually joked some time back when someone watched my program and said, "Oh, you got to go work in Nigeria." And I said, "No, I can't. Because you'll be cutting my, I just don't think, I'm not saying they can't pay me. That's not what I'm saying. But, you're cutting my money short, I'd rather stay here and work and do what I do than to go to Nigeria, especially now that I actually see the kind of remunerations that they do get. It's not the best. It's not appealing for anybody that wants to go work in Nigeria. I understand that during the Obasanjo regime, a couple of ministers that he brought from abroad, especially from America, said they were going to continue to take what they earned in in America as salary, and they were not going to go for the Nigerians. I know it copped a whole load of people complaining that, look, if you don't want to do it, you don't do it and all that. But look, I understand it. If they still had mortgages to pay here and, health insurance and children's living expenses and all that, look, you're not going to survive on salary that is being paid in Nigeria now, except you steal. And I know most of us believe that our ministers and politicians steal money. I've always said I've never been part of it, so I don't know. We do know that things do get missing, things are not done properly, but I don't know whether they steal. But this is a good reason to start to look at how we can restructure pay to be not necessarily sufficient, because nothing is ever enough for anybody. But I think what I see on paper today is really not the best. Before I go, I'm going to give you my point-blank opinion on this issue. We have a minimum wage of 18,000 naira. At today's exchange rate with the dollar, that comes down to about $45. $45 a month for the lowest paid Nigerian that is being paid by government earns $45 a month. That's less than $1. That's less than $2 a day. I'm not into government prescribing or, no government enforcing a certain amount of pay. But those that know me, even out here, I'm not into, government saying that this is what people have to pay. I say the market should determine this. But in Nigeria, as of now, there's absolutely no market. The market we have, the best paid Nigerians today, are just not in the NNPCs of the central bank. They're with the telecommunication companies. They're with all the private, completely private oil industries. There's a vast difference between what those people earn and what another Nigerian working in other spheres of life work. How are we going to rectify this now becomes the question. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Look, some things are beyond my own pay scale. But what I have seen and what I have read and what I have tried to study in the last week when this came out in publication to me has really been appalling, because it's very difficult to understand why we do so many things and yet do so very little. I mean, a minister is being given money to buy newspapers. How does that concern the typical Nigerian? How many of those newspapers is he going to read? And shouldn't the reading of newspaper be at his own discretion and from his own purse? These are things I never would understand. Why do we spend money where we're not supposed to spend money? I'll say this again. There are only 3 people that work for the American government that I believe have government accommodation: the president, the vice president, and the chief judge in their Supreme Court. And there are reasons for that, obviously. But in Nigeria, yes, we don't have a lot of public accommodation anymore, but they're all given money to accommodate themselves. I don't think that is necessary. Why don't we just make that salary? I think any man that aspires to be minister in Nigeria should either be credit-worthy enough or should have enough money of his own to rent a decent flat or a house to stay in. He's probably coming from Calabar. He probably has his own family home residence in Calabar. Why does he need such a massive new building to rent or to buy because he's going to be in Abuja for at least, well, I mean, in some cases, less than 4 years? We need to change the structure. It is important we do that. I remember many years ago when the banks were becoming what I would consider Americanized. One of the first things they did was to restructure their salary scale. They did that in order to hold down the best of the best. Their salaries became dollarized. People were actually earning, of course not dollar, but they were earning equivalent of dollar at that time. $60,000 a year, $80,000 a year, and whatever it turns out to be in Naira, that's what they earn. These were people in high managerial positions. They restructured it in order for them to actually get better. They were able to hold on to people. They were able to train people. People now had aspirations to get to that level in order to earn that kind of good money. You work for money. Our system should understand that. The president's job is hard enough, but at $40,000 a year, $40,000 a year, it's not good enough. And I think it has an effect on how people in power in Nigeria, on how they dip their hands, if not their feet, into something they're not supposed to. I hope you've watched and I hope you've enjoyed today's program. A little bit off the way I would usually present the program, but I had to do because this, to me, struck me as being really not the best thing we should be doing. We need to restructure our salaries for government workers, for leadership position in Nigeria. We need to cut out a lot of things, and we need to add to what their supposed basic salaries are. I think that will be better for us. It will invite more people to come into the system, to be in leadership position, and actually not think about how to survive. With less than 2 million naira a month, a salary for the top earners in our government, that is not good enough. It will always create problems for them. I'll see you all back here next week. Bye for now.